this is exactly what I would love to see. It's actually on the XRP Ledger DEX, right? Like actually on our technology, on the protocol that we all love and that we all share and cheer on, is increasing liquidity. We want to increase and bootstrap liquidity on the XRP Ledger DEX, make it more viable for trading, for FX swaps, for auto bridging, for all the awesome things, and to incentivize that, right? To bootstrap it, to attract more liquidity. Doing this first step is just massive. Like when I saw this, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because we talked about this, and that they start doing that is fantastic. What I hope is to see more, right? Like that there's like more support for these initiatives. And I even like was making like comments under Ripple's post that we see later about, hey, they are in a good position to do something like this, because what I like when you focus the XRP Ledger DEX is you do it project agnostic and you help really the ecosystem and people can develop around it.
Hey and welcome to Krippenreiter TV, our weekly series on Monday, hosted by me, Krippenreiter, and my regular co-host Vet. Since there's never a dull day all week in the XRP ecosystem, a lot has happened again. A new white paper got released about Ripple Prime's approach to digital asset trading. We will look at what this means for XRP. New yield opportunities were officially announced and released, some of them off-chain, some of them on-chain. We will cover the details and talk about the risks. Also a ton of new FUD about the batch vulnerability report that we want to talk about and want to correct today, and the new support model that Ripple will follow in the future to support the ecosystem and its builders as it moves from Ripple only to a more distributed and community-driven approach, including VC support, which is important for a lot of builders. But first things first, the massive Wave of Innovation event is currently happening right now in Australia. Hey, Vet, out of the 1,000 switches that Brad mentioned, what's the one you like the most?
100% the community switch. 100% the community
Awesome.
switch. He mentioned like all the people who are sort of going after the FUD, which we will do as well in this episode. So we'll go after the FUD, correct the misinformation, spread the good word, do just their part. It's just, it's a wave of switches essentially. And I like how you put that. Yeah, that was well done, Brad. Well done.
Well done. There are many switches. One big one are the products, I think, like G-Treasury, Ripple Prime, as we can see here, but also Ripple Payments. Ripple Payments are very important as well. But Ripple Prime maybe a little bit more than we used to think, because there's now a new blueprint. They call it Blueprint. It's a white paper, which is about institutional digital asset trading for Ripple Prime. So it's not just TradFi now. They're also going for digital DeFi, obviously, which is like, I think the bigger goal, because only then can you like capture all the advantages that digital assets offer and blockchain. And there is a lot to read, a lot of complexities. If you want to learn more, I will put the link obviously in the description as well. I think the goal actually is to centralize all the things that are fragmented right now. And they call it centralizing the common core of netting, intermediation, and risk control, and also settlement. And what this will do is obviously it will hopefully make things more efficient, and hopefully also will use the XRP Ledger, right, for settlement, for example. And when we go further, we scroll down, we will see that there's actually one part that is about the XRP Ledger. Oh, it takes a while. There we are. Leveraging the XRP blockchain. It's interesting how they call it XRP blockchain now. Maybe it's a rebrand. We will see. It's fascinating because it's the XRP Ledger, actually, right? What they try to say in this, I think, is when you use prime brokerage services, there is like the settlement timeline that you have. And usually, commercially required, you have a settlement time of T+1, which means if you execute a trade, you can expect the settlement to occur 1 day later. And the beauty of blockchain, obviously, is that, at least on the XRPL, you can settle every 3 to 5 seconds. So what you could do, actually, you could, if you want to, like, obviously it costs a little bit more if you do it, but within this time frame of 1 day, you can actually settle way faster for things that you do if you need it. And for this to happen, for this to be possible, what they say is that they can offer or expose on-chain credit lines to brokers and market makers. As we said in the last episode, we need market makers to make the market, but they also have to settle, obviously. And for this to work, I think because we are talking about on-chain credit lines, we are actually talking about the lending protocol, right? Isn't this the lending protocol?
I would think so. I mean, just from like reading it, and specifically credit line on the XRPL, that sort of makes the most sense. That, or I would tip on payment channels. You could maybe say that, where you can like sort of draw funds and then settle later in batch. That could be, but I like where they put the blockchain in, where it makes sense, right?
True.
Like they say, okay, this is the advantage 24/7 settlement. It makes perfect time when you have like these sort of periods where you are in the air.
Yeah.
And this is where they go in.
I think you shouldn't force the blockchain if it doesn't make sense, because then you offer something that is maybe too risky for most, which is maybe not well regulated. It maybe doesn't fit perfectly, so you end up having more problems than solutions. But with XRPL and credit lines, for example, it makes perfect sense. You can offer a service for people to borrow money for even more market making. Right.
I have a question here for you, actually.
Okay, let's go.
You see on the right side there, it says, a participant invokes a smart contract to draw funds ahead. Is this XLS 101? Is this something else? Is it maybe even the EVM sidechain? Is it a different chain? Because
interesting.
Or what do they mean with smart? Because the big problem with smart contract is it is not a good definition, and everybody has sort of their own definition.
Yes.
I remember like when we had the debate with smart contracts, everybody said, but it's a smart contract. You know? It's like, yeah, it is a smart contract. But
there is
like, what does it mean?
If you go to XRPL org in the documentation and you search for smart contracts, you will actually find a definition for it. And what they mean with it is the conditional escrows.
Yeah.
So you could maybe say this is a conditional escrow, which is redefined as smart contract, or maybe it is a smart escrow, or it's XLS 101, right?
That's a difficulty because it's such a broad term. Plus, in crypto, people have like, for what we call smart contract, different terms. That's why smart contract is not smart contract. Right. I tried to make this very clear when we had the debate with XLS 101. For example, the Ethereum folks, they say smart contract. So that word comes from the Ethereum folks. But actually, the Solana people call smart contracts programs. So on Solana, when you say I deploy a program or a program, you refer to a smart contract in Ethereum terms. So this is, again, just a good proof that terminology is just difficult. We don't know like really what that means.
Maybe it's just automation in general. So they want to highlight that this is nothing a person has to trigger. It is something that is automatically happening in the background. In automation, it is smart, and it is probably a contract in some sense based on terminology, because it's automated, because it's like triggering itself maybe.
That's why I like, just in general, a little bit of on-chain logic. You know, like that's beautiful how they describe it. You basically invoke a logic on chain, and then something happens, right? It triggers something, and that's awesome. It's like a switch, right? Like it's like a switch, and then something happens, and you don't need much more than that. So, I mean, you know me, I'm a huge fan of on-chain logic in the capacity that we need it. I'm not a fan of like how it's done on Ethereum, like the full blown, but I do see the value of, you know, some programmability in that aspect.
It's getting more obvious over the time, as we will talk now about DeFi and later also about the batch feature.
Yes.
I as well think that smart contracts in the form of XLS 101 will be a huge advantage for the XRPL. Right. It's a game changer in the sense that we will gain something without actually losing much. Obviously, there's always like a pro and con to everything that you do on blockchain. But I think we will actually gain more than we will lose with the way XLS 101 will be introduced.
I agree. We gain just, you know, specifically when you look at in the XRP Ledger, you cannot really build something on it. Like you cannot have any own product on it. And here Ripple would have their own smart contract, right, with their own logic. They could make an amendment, but it would be a silly amendment, like an amendment just for one person. Nobody would want to have that, right? It's too granular. So you want to have something that is a little bit more flexible without, of course, the downsides of bogging it down. And we have to be honest, since 2013, right, like when they made the decision 2012 against smart contracts, there have been a lot of developments, on that end. WASM wasn't really like out there. It came like 2017 out, and then people developed this. So a lot of the things that we have today didn't exist back then. So back then it was probably a very good call because all the existing things were not good. But I think nowadays you can say, okay, there's more technology available. Maybe, some programmability actually helps us. What do you think?
Right. I think it actually helps. It actually helps right now. I think it would be a problem back in the day because, as you said, we would only have the chance to use EVM. And we already know with the introduction of EVM, you can't be a payments chain anymore. If we want the XRP Ledger to be a payments chain and want the XRPL to be price efficient while trading, and we want it to be fast and low cost and no tax and no middleman, then obviously a smart contract, an EVM smart contract, is not the way forward, which is probably why we now have the EVM sidechain, which is really helpful. But the WASM side, it fits way better to the XRPL ethos and core strategy.
Yeah, 100%. Let me add this, by the way. There is, just to give you like good idea of the philosophy of Vitalik, and because he made this very clear sort of in one of his blog posts recently, is he wants to see smart contracts. By the way, Fig from Squid Router made a good comment on this.
Yes.
Vitalik is doubling down on heavy smart contracts, the connotation on heavy smart contracts, because Vitalik wants, or he sees the ideal to have applications, financial applications, pass the walk away test. So basically, the company disappears, everything disappears, the app still exists. This requires heavy on-chain logic because you need everything that requires for this project to run to be on-chain. So when the project disappears, the project still exists, and people can just connect to it through a new front end if they like. This is a heavy smart contract, right? This is very, very heavy, and this is his ideal.
Maybe even error prone, right? Is it even?
Probably, yeah. I mean, the thing is, because they become so heavy, it means like that needs more logic. More logic always means like it's more error prone. The more simpler you can keep something, the better, right? Typically.
Right.
And his ideal is like sort of passing the walkaway test for these financial applications.
Now let's go to the actual big topic, I think, which is DeFi. It's always DeFi, right?
Yeah.
Which seems to follow us a little bit because there are always new products coming out, new announcements, new features on the XRP Ledger. But this time it's a little bit different. We have two announcements. One is more XRPL heavy, and the other one is a little bit more XRP heavy. And what I'm talking about is this one from First Ledger. They started an incentivization program for Ripple USD XRP AMM pool on the XRP Ledger. Well, on First Ledger. Why do they say on First Ledger? Because the incentivization only works. You only get the incentivized funds airdrop to your wallet if you go to First Ledger and deposit funds into this pool via their interface. That's the goal or the difference. And the way this is working is starting from March the 2nd, you were able to deposit assets into this AMM pool and into the XRP Ripple USD AMM pool. But you have to do it directly on First Ledger. That's really important if you want to be part of this incentivization program. And you obviously also have to like set the Ripple USD trust line first if you don't hold Ripple USD already. And the idea is that for every 30 days, you get XRP airdropped into your wallet if you participate. So this is maybe something for people that want to start on the AMM on XRPL, but you are maybe you are not willing to start because you think, rightfully so, that you probably won't be able to fight impermanent loss. But with the addition of this airdrop, with the addition of this incentivization program, you will very likely beat impermanent loss in this time frame.
Let me give a huge shout out to that whole endeavor here with doing this initiative, because this is exactly what I love to see. It's
Me too.
Actually on the XRP Ledger DEX, right? Like actually on our technology, on the protocol that we all love and that we all share and cheer on, is increasing liquidity. We want to increase and bootstrap liquidity on the XRP Ledger DEX, make it more viable for trading, for FX swaps, for auto bridging, for all the awesome things. And to incentivize that, right, to bootstrap it, to get more, to attract more liquidity, doing this first step is just massive. Like when I saw this, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because we talked about this, and that they start doing that is fantastic. What I hope is to see more, right? Like that there's like more support for these initiatives. And I even like was making like comments under Ripple's post that we see later about, hey, you know, they are in a good position to do something like this, because what I like when you focus the XRP Ledger DEX is you do it project agnostic, and you help really the ecosystem, and people can develop around it. And as you say, what I also like is about the soft lock. You know, it's just when you move the funds out, they track that, and then you are not getting the funds. And if you are keeping then you just continue receiving it without smart contracts.
Right. The big advantage, because we are not talking about off-chain, we are not talking about side chains, it's all on the XRP Ledger. It's the AMM that is protocol native. It's the DEX. The DEX consists of the CLOP, the central limit order book, and the AMM. In this part, it's about the AMM. And what this offers is on-chain liquidity. You provide liquidity to this on-chain protocol native AMM, and let other people trade Ripple USD and XRP as they will. And the more is provided, the better the exchange rate. Yep. Because there's more liquidity that the AMM can use to sell and buy on both sides, right? So this is really huge. This is really important. And because the value is so high, it's 400K.
Yeah. It's like 10% of the whole pool, right?
Right, the pool is very small, even though it's Ripple USD, XRP. If you put so much money on top as airdrop incentive, you will get a lot of money. You will also see probably a lot of people withdrawing from the current AMM pool and depositing into this. Because the incentive is just so high. The
incentives, and for 30 days, this is not for a year, this is for 30 days. Like the APY is really, really strong here. And I don't know because they say each reward cycle lasts 30 days. So it seems it's like more. I don't think they have said there's no deadline. I don't think they have said how long it will go. But there's this video from them showing the crazy part about this video. Let's see if I can pause it somewhere here. And I open it. The reward APR is 18,000%. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't think it's true. It's too crazy. It's probably just a demo. You know what we need is we need a simulator, right? Like we need a reward simulator where we say, hey, right now it's here. If here, how much is my APY? How much is my improvement? Like a simulator.
If I do this and this, if I withdraw then and deposit,
because then you can plan, right? You can then plan,
right? Yeah, and you can also simulate. You could simulate, for example, if someone would provide it, which no one did right now. Then you could also simulate how much money you will lose and get depending on the market situation. You could say, for example, if XRP goes to $10, what would this mean for impermanent loss? What would this mean for my reward?
Right.
Also, the fee. If the fee goes down to, let's say, 0.1%, or it's 1%, how much more or less do I get? Based on historic data, for example.
Does something like this exist on XRPL?
No, not as far as I know.
Okay.
Like the only one who did it like a little bit was XP Market. They showed the impermanent loss, but that's it. And as far as I know, it's gone already. They removed the impermanent loss tracker. So I don't think there's even one interface right now that is able to simulate anything in regards to the provision of money. Like there are so many interfaces showing you how to provide liquidity and how to trade, but they are not really giving you like this view like DexFi did back in the day.
Yeah,
shout out DexFi. There was everything you needed. You had a simulation, we had this overview. If you provide this, what happens in 30 days, for example, based on historic data, it's all gone. And no one stepped up and tried to build it again. So right now there's no simulation program as far as I know.
Good to know.
So,
and they're following definitely along on this incentive program. It's exactly what I want to see. I hope to see a lot more of those initiatives.
Yes. Kudos to First Ledger, to Sloppy, to Adam. Great
Shout
job.
Out to them.
Love it. Shout out. Another news that came out also about DeFi is the combination of Xaman and Flare. and their X app that is about smart accounts. They call it smart accounts. What is a smart account? A smart account on Xaman is basically something that helps you abstract away the complexity. So instead of using another wallet, using another wallet and holding another token on another network, because we're talking about Flare, it's another network, you would need another token. You would need another wallet. You would need to pay gas fees in a token that you may not want to hold. So how do you make this all abstracted and go away? With smart accounts. So you simulate a position on another network and make it visible in your wallet. And this is what is now available for people that like to earn yield on their XRP. It's XRP only right now. And the way it works, basically, like everyone listening right now, you have to do your own due diligence. Obviously, it's a lot of research that you have to do to understand it, because there are a lot of smart contracts involved, a lot of complexity in the sense that you really have to think about where the yield comes from and where your funds go to. Really make sure you understand it before you jump in just because you get 3%, because really the risk is there. We are invested in a high risk environment anyway with blockchain and crypto. And then what you do for 3% is sometimes not really worth it.
Right. It goes like, needless to say, with all, like, this is
right.
all real, as you said.
Yes, yeah. It's in general. It's in general very, very important to understand that DeFi in itself is not risk-free. Yeah. Just because you can earn 3% doesn't mean you should always.
Yeah. I want to also give, of course, also to them a shout out for, showing that they collaborated very well. Like, that was like cool to see that they, like, Xaman and Flare collaborated here. So seamless to create something like this. Have to say that's a nice demonstration, right? Nice to say, hey, we can collaborate on initiatives like this and roll them out in a timely manner, and educate people along the way. That was, of course, good to see. I think for everybody who, of course, wants to utilize Flare for their usage of XRP, I think it's probably the best way. Like, if you right now want to use Flare with your XRP on XRPL, that's the way. Like, I cannot think of another way how you would do it. You would do it through Xaman. Yeah,
probably. And you have to understand that XRP can never leave the ecosystem. It can never leave the XRPL. So what happens is you get another asset in the background, which is FXRP, which then gets invested in a vault, and this vault earns you XRP.
Yeah, essentially, you are becoming a Flare user, just remotely. Yeah, they just abstracted a way to make it simple that you just do it with one click. But essentially, you are remotely using Flare. You're remotely using essentially Flare. You are depositing into the vault pools there, and do DeFi on Flare. Yeah, so that's basically it. You are able to do Flare DeFi through your Xaman wallet, very, very seamless, secure, self-custodial way, and that's amazing. Yeah.
That's the beauty, I think, that you are still in self-custody and that you are in control, in a sense that at least up to the point when your funds are invested. Obviously, in DeFi, if you invest somewhere, someone else has your money, either a person or a smart contract. You cannot earn yield in DeFi without giving away your funds in some sense, even if you just give them away to a smart contract. Yeah. But with this, it's still self-custodial and it's smart contract based until the end. But then still, you have to find out where the yield comes from.
Exactly. This is very important. This is not a replacement for any of this. It's an infrastructure piece that they are basically able to do signings on the XRP Ledger, and Flare can read that and interpret that into actions on Flare and do it for you on Flare. That's the infrastructure piece. That's the sort of the clever thing here, and very well done.
Definitely. And if we think a little bit further, now with token escrow on XRPL, you can also think about FRippleUSD, for example.
Right.
So I think what will happen in the future also is that there will be a way to earn yield on FRippleUSD on Flare. The same way you earn FXRP yield right now on Flare, you will also be able to earn yield on any token that can be escrowed. Because the escrow happens on XRPL right now with Flare, as soon as you deposit somewhere via a smart account, for example, your XRP gets locked on XRPL via a Flare account on XRPL in an escrow.
The core vault, yeah.
The core vault. And you have to do it the same way with tokenized assets, which you couldn't do back in the day. But now with token escrow, you can do it. So this is probably something that will follow up pretty soon.
Yeah. That's amazing, because now that we have token escrow, you can make use of token escrow. So they could become a very heavy user of token escrow, and maybe want to tap into the meme community or other communities where they offer like tokenization of that. Of course, FRLUSD is probably the most straightforward one. Yeah, I would tip on that too.
Yeah, but I also want to see things happening on XRPL. So this is something where Ripple can help with their support.
That was interesting, So they announced their new initiative for supporting the XRP Ledger. And they made a lot of changes to basically the structure, mostly. And of course, they highlighted what they have done already, which I like, because it's just important to say, that what they have done. So, and exactly the pillars or the new actors, right? You have XRPL Commons, which everybody knows. It's very interesting. And by the way, this is all focused on distribution. Means, as they say here, the goal is to ensure that no single organization becomes the sole gatekeeper for ecosystem support. Okay, by enabling multiple entities to fund and support builders, the ecosystem remains open, community-driven, and so on. And XRPL Commons was like basically one step into this. Now we have, of course, ZaoDAO, which is a DAO hybrid, I think they call it, and they would aim for community grants, community feedback loops, DAO proposals. Just to slide into this already before we, let's finish it up first on that end. But so XRP Commons, ZaoDAO, XRP Asia as mentioned. XRP Asia seems to be a new entity like XRPL Commons that is going to be created, probably involving all the APAC actors that we know, like XRP Japan, XRP South Korea, and so on. So basically, like the folks in APAC, they would become sort of or do also XRP Asia, which is interesting because you have them single, like as one actors, and then there is, I guess, maybe one XRP Asia again, like overarching, interesting, and they all sort of being bundled into what they call XRPL Hub. And this XRPL Hub is basically created to put this all together. Ripple is going to continue their FinTech Builder program, or their accelerator. They call it now FinTech Builder program. So Ripple is going to continue their funding. I guess they're going to take over sort of the United States part. Because whoever, like, if anyone has paid attention, there's in general to how the XRPL ecosystem is divided for these entities. You have XRPL Commons for Europe. You have then XRP Japan and all those others for Asia. Then you have Ripple actually doing for United States. There is no XRP America or XRP Americas, which, by the way, I would love to see, actually, because we have a lot of people in the United States who are passionate community members, and there's no entity for them other than Ripple, right? Like to go to, because all the events actually is handled by Ripple there. All the other entities, they're not doing anything in that regard.
There's also one difference. The FinTech Builder program is especially in particular focused on institutional grade financial applications on XRPL. So in case you do something retail-based, you probably don't get support, obviously, because it's not institutional, it's not regulated financial.
And if you think about that, this is sort of Ripple's approach to helping you with more than funding. Like they say, we want to help you with, what does it say, development lifecycle, early product design, market launch. Institutional product design or product launch is their bread and butter. So they know the best environment, like if I say I have an NFT gaming, they cannot, they're not experts in NFT gaming. They have no idea what I need, so they couldn't help me with that. And even if they want to choose someone to help me, it requires skills, right? Like you need to know who to get to help me. So for me, it makes sense because that's where they are coming from. That makes sense because they know exactly how this works because that's their thing. So they can help you with RLUSD, payments and other support, right? Infrastructure that they have. But someone who's doing NFT gaming or let's say agriculture, supply chain, it's not their thing.
Right. But then you need someone on the retail side as well. I think there's a gap that needs to be filled with by someone. And
I think that's what the others do. The others here. Yeah.
I think ZaoDao may be the retail side of things. The part that supports retail.
If you go down there, this is now the interesting part, the VC part. So they are looking into getting more VC exposure. They say additional to all what Ripple's initiatives and Commons, ZaoDao, XRP Asia, they want to get like support from A100X Ventures, Dragonfly, Pantera, to support the ecosystem with strategic guidance and funding. And you know what's interesting with this is, I think this is the best path.
Right.
Like I think the best path is really the VC funding route. It's not the grants route. Because the grants route, the problem with that is you are not invested in it. I can just throw around $100,000 here, and if they fail, so
gone.
Be it. You know, it's gone. It's free money. It's literally free money. But with VC capital or at least equity-based funding, I know that I'm invested in it.
There's skin in the game.
Skin in the game. I have the best interest for them to succeed too, because I would profit, and I would be also more picky about who to fund, because
there is a natural filter, I think, with VCs, because VCs will probably not invest in your product if they don't think it will succeed in some way.
Yes.
Or if they don't think they can make money with your product.
Or they're going to give you like according to your potential, right? So maybe, of course, they're not going to give you like, let's say $10 million if they are not seeing the potential. It's going to be much less. But that's according to your potential, and then you can build on top of that. But the important part is you're going to get people on your team that have your best interest. It's awesome to have people like, let's say, Dragonfly or Pantera on your team who invested in you, because they want you to succeed. And if you did something well with the initial seed investment, you can snowball that. And that would be interesting. I give you like one thing that I don't understand much with. Oh, you go ahead. You want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think some of them at least expect some form of multi-chain interoperability.
100%.
I don't think if you build something solely on XRPL and be XRPL native with everything, I don't think you will be able to.
I agree.
To partner with these VCs, because they want to see multi-chain exposure, even if it's only on the EVM sidechain or Flare or whatever.
You have to, because the world is multi-chain, right? The world is multi-chain. And even if you are an XRPL native, you know the XRP Ledger is, let's say, best in class for payments, then you know already that in the long term, most of the transactions will route through the XRPL. But you need to offer like your customers multiple options. You cannot just, it's just like Ripple. Ripple is not doing only XRPL, like Ripple Payments is chain agnostic, right? But they know the XRPL is the most efficient, and naturally everything will sort of funnel into the XRP Ledger. That's the game you have to play. You cannot force customers into one solution, because they will just say that's not good. And plus, Mikkel made like a really good comment in one of the posts, and just in general, he made this like I think multiple times, is make your audience, target audience, not only the crypto bros and the users who are here. Like people go into spaces with 80 people and they talk about their project. That's like 80 people. That's not that's not gonna, you know. Your target audience should be this whole country or this whole segment or this whole continent. You're right. Like, this is my target market. Everybody who's doing this. Because then you have a ton of people that you can address instead of just saying the crypto bros.
But then you have to do marketing, which is something many people hate. Many people are developers. They don't know much about marketing. They don't know how to promote their product or to even reach an audience, which Ripple knows perfectly well. So this is where they could help. They could help you find an audience that may not be able to reach you any other way.
You know, I think what the most critical is to have good teams. Good team building, right? You have a lot of people who are great developers, but everything else they're not good at, because of course there's developers. So how can you match them with other people who are good marketers, good admins, to create a really strong team that can actually, you know, run when you give them like support, right? So creating good teams is really the foundation. And I speak out of really much experience. You know, with like having a really good team is just super, super important. Without a good team, people who can handle different parts of it, it just becomes just too difficult to handle any of these bigger tasks in scaling your business and growing it. But that's one part. One thing that I find interesting. So this is an open question essentially, because I find, so when you look at ZaoDao, okay, so they do the grants, and a grant is literally free money, right? It's basically you give money for free with nothing attached. But how do you get people to vote in ZaoDao? It's incentivized, as we know, that we are basically saying that investments may be equity based or something like this. So something in return, right? Like you want to incentivize the holders to give out money, right? Because there is a return of invest. What is the return of invest for a grant? You know, if you don't do it equity based. If you do it equity based, I get that, but then it's not a grant. You know what I mean? Like you need to pick one or two.
And we already know that these grants are not really working, because you could always say, yeah, it's the wrong team, it's the wrong project. If you had invested in my project, I would have done way better than them.
That's always what people say.
So yeah, maybe the community grant is not really. Maybe in general, throwing out free money to people that you think should deserve it. There should be something that keeps you milestone based, like with smart escrows you should, right. Because with smart escrows, for example, if you would do the community grants with smart escrows, you could actually do milestone based grants. You could you could say, if there is like this milestone is successful, you get the first 10% or something, and then you have to prove that you are able to do the second and third milestone as well to get the rest.
Actually, Ripple did this like in the later stages of their grant program. Definitely in our Wave 4 grant that we did back then with XRP Cafe, milestone based. So you set milestones with them, and then when you reach the milestones, you get the payout. You don't get the full payout right up front. This was just in the early beginnings, which they learned from. The big problem with this is, how do you define the milestones? And you make the milestones effective. This is the big. This is the big thing. For example, there were many teams who had their milestone to create a new feature or create a new website. Yeah. Okay, you create a new website, you get the funding. Okay, but what is like sort of the economical output of that? Like, what is the business output of this? Like, this is not a target of reach this much revenue or reach this much in fees generated or onboard this many users, and this is where it gets tricky, because when you do metrics based, like in these metrics based, you have unfortunately a lot of people who try to game the system, right? We have personally seen a lot of wash trading happening, and then what happened is I think at least on the side of Ripple and so on, they have like a whole data team. And so they need to basically do analysis. You need a lot of people just to check whether people are not cheating, because you have to think about this when you deal with grants. It's the following: if I give you $1 million, I have $900,000 worth of incentives to cheat and still pocket the $100,000 in my pocket. So I get $1 million, I can spend $900,000 to cheat, and I still get 100K. So because people have like all the incentive to do so. It's the same thing with 10,000, right? $10,000. I spent 9,000 to cheat the system and get 1,000 in my pocket. I still made a profit. So the question here is really, how do you align ecosystem success with funding? Because the worst thing, I guess, what could happen is we get more resources to distribute through these channels. And they get all sunk in projects that you like, that you find like good, but they actually don't move the needle. And what ends up happening is, at the end of the year or end of a couple of years, is okay, we distributed $100 million, $1 billion, and we have nothing to show for. And then, to be honest, what would be then your reaction to the person who is giving money, in that case the Ripple, to say we're not gonna support like further, because like this is just sunken cost, and everybody tells us every year they have a new plan how to do it better. So we need to be really like honest with ourselves and how to deal with this, because it's a common resource that is basically trusted to us. How do you deal with that? Very difficult.
But you said
this will be not the last time we talk about it.
Yeah. You said it's an open question. Do you have an answer to yourself?
Not really. I will be honest. Not really, because I think we fundamentally lack the understanding. We haven't done our research on what actually works and what doesn't. We are very focused on, we want money. Like, give us money. Like, we need money now, right? This is way too much focus. What we should do is, a lot of ecosystems have received a lot of funding from their foundations, or they raised capital with VCs, hundreds of millions of dollars, launching a new layer 1, and they failed. There's over 100 protocols, L1s and L2s, that completely failed and basically put all the money into the ground, and nothing happened. How do you avoid not becoming that? Because oftentimes people always say, "But look, Solana and Ethereum, that's where it works." This is where it works, but we need to learn why it didn't work for the hundreds of others to not make the same mistake. This is my point, and I have not a clear answer, because we would need to make that due diligence, and I don't see like anyone really looking into that. Like, it's more really right now the focus. Just give me money. Like, just give me money. I deserve it. I'm here for a year or 2 or 3. I deserve it. Give me money, which is a valid argument for that person. It's just not a very good argument for someone who wants the ecosystem grow. Like, I want this thing to succeed.
I think for these people, the Glow program is way better. Because the Glow program is retroactive. You see what happened, and you see if it moved the needle. If it moved the needle, you can vote on the people who did something meaningful, and then you can give them money. This is why I'm a huge fan of Glow. But the issue, obviously, with Glow is the money is not enough. And because it's retroactive, it doesn't mean it will mean much for the future. So you give someone money because he did something, doesn't mean he will use the money to do something new.
I like Glow. And from the voting so far that I've seen, people were really spot on it. I would say the people who actually like did something. There were a couple of people who pitched projects. No hate, we love the builders, but didn't move the needle. I'm sorry, didn't move the needle. There were people who really moved the needle, like someone like Shift. He has, not many people know Puppy Tools. He has a Discord bot that is used basically by all projects on the XRPL. It definitely took over Jitterbot. Like, he has done all the amazing things, and so he's basically full focus on that, which is the cafe thing. But he completely took over, and everybody's using that. So he has a product, a tool that all these communities are using. For me, this is someone who moved the needle, who definitely showed, and he, he got support, and I'm glad people voted for that too. But the problem, of course, with the voting aspect is always the popularity thing. Like, hey, true. We have seen that too, where people they had a good social presence, or they were shouted out, and then they, people,
they get money for something that wasn't really worth the money. Basically.
Or think about this: you have a token. Let's say you are a project. You have a token. You tell all your token holders, if you vote for me on this program, we get money, and then we can maybe here share, and then
a buyback. Based on the money you get. That's I think
funding remains difficult. Funding really remains. It's not as simple. Giving away money is not simple. It's really not. Like, specifically if you want to see something like actually happening. For me, this is all money. We can just say it's Ripple's money, and if Ripple loses $1 billion or $2 billion on this or whatever, I'm not a Ripple shareholder personally. I don't care. But someone who would think, what if we have rather used those things actually to bootstrap the XRP Ledger DEX, to deepen the liquidity on the AMMs? Right. It kind of becomes sad. It's like, oh well, we kind of could have used it for better use, but oh well, it's not my money.
True. I think one usage which is good, which is important for incentives, and where I think money should flow into, is for security. So the bug bounty program.
There was a smooth
which helped with the XRPL badge amendment to find out that there is a problem, which the Cantina AI found out. Funnily, it's the AI in the end who found a critical logic flaw, which is, I didn't expect it. I actually expected someone like TQ to find it, but in the end it was an AI.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And the problem with this, I think in general, is that, okay, it happened. The bug is bad. We will talk about this now, as it's a critical one. But the problem with this is, people obviously, like the journalists, for example, they take this, they read this report in a way that favors their opinion or their narrative, And what they do, they push out FUD messages or FUD posts and articles that make things worse than it is. Because we have to realize that this is a bad thing that happened. It's a bug, but it doesn't mean, for example, that the XRPL collapsed or that we were in danger at any time. Because we have to differentiate exactly what happened, what was the impact, and what really was the issue here. Because we have messages like XRP Ledger avoided total collapse. This bug happened, so XRPL is now centralized. Or Ripple D version 3.1.1 was introduced and the fix is already there, which it isn't. Or there is a wallet drainer on XRPL now, which is like, as always with these messages, there is like half truth, but because it's just so over the top, it's not really true. So maybe that help us understand what is actually the impact, right?
I mean, you sum it up very well. The thing is, it's a nasty bug, right? I mean, it is what it is. It's a really nasty bug, and you guys can read it. It's very similar in the effects of the permission delegation, if people remember. This one was like where you could burn someone else's XRP. Here is not the burning. Here is like you can do everything else, like payments, for example. So you can basically take someone's funds out. It's a nasty bug. 100%. It's an absolute nasty bug. It's probably the most nastiest one ever we have encountered. But everybody, the thing is, this one was one of the amendments that was sort of from the community side. Tested among the top 3. If you look NFTs, if you look AMM, I would say Batch was definitely among them. We had people who did like platforms to test it out. People did YouTube videos like Mark Ibanez from Gen 3 Labs. Other people did like blog posts about it. Audits. We had actually audits from this. I think even 2. We had multiple iterations of it when there was like adjustments. So people looked at it, in my opinion, good, fair enough, right? Like from a community point of view, I'm not mad because I know that from what we have as a community, people did the best that they can. But can we improve on it, right? Can we improve on it? And there's certainly like a lot of improvement. We will talk about that. But essentially about the bug is you have like this inner sign that you can use exactly, and the root cause basically that you can use even if it's unsigned, right? Like intentionally unsigned, it would still authorize people to do things. And so the function basically responsible for validating those signers contain a critical loop, it says, where a signer whose account did not yet exist on the ledger, whose signing key matched their own account, it immediately declared success and exited. So it would that checking of that function validation was just not good, and the AI caught this. By the way, AI caught this. This is like the amazing part. AI caught this. AI caught this from Apex. One thing. Let me add this. One thing. Big shout out to the community. The people who found the bug themselves made this very clear a couple times, even to me in the chats. Is if it weren't for the community, that means all of you guys who and you and others who post about amendments, like when they're getting activation and so on, they caused them to look at it. For them, they saw a lot of like people posting on X because they monitor X, and they saw a lot of people posting on X about XRP getting like this batch amendment upgrade now in activation, and this is what prompted them to look at it. If it weren't for the community to look at it, to be so passionate about these amendments and post about it, they wouldn't have checked the amendment. Yeah. That's something that is really baffling to me. Like that's amazing to see that the community had such an impact. Mind blowing, and it's just good that we have it now caught, that it's dealt with, it's now deprecated, so there's no danger anymore. And there is of course now a whole heap of things going on in the background for people who are dealing with the core ledger developers to incorporate more AI. You can see this also in the security plan. There's a lot of very ambitious initiatives going on right now to really bolster the security on the XRP ledger, like really to really do better, right. On all fronts, right? and I hope that it will get a lot of support, because it is truly important for all of us to get more, like maybe even a more revised bug bounty program, which this one called.
Hopefully.
Get more something like the attackathon for lending protocol in addition, right?
Yeah.
Just like we need to push what we can. We can never go 100%.
No,
we need to accept.
obviously,
We can never go 100%.
Well, with the formal verification, we can
go very close.
Really close.
Man, Krippenreiter, this was like so sad for me, because I knew that this is upcoming, like the formal verification is upcoming, but this thing front run us. It was just faster, and I knew that this is sort of the risk. You know, like. Okay, you are without protection right now until you have sort of right. And it came out. So my lesson for me, like, we need to bolster security 100% and be a little bit slower until we have something better. Like we need to chill. I also recognize that you need to do a balance. No amendments is just also difficult for a protocol that has no other ways of introducing features, and you need features for institutional adoption, like permission decks. You know. It's a difficult balance to strike, let's be honest.
It's always also for people to understand, just because this bug existed doesn't mean, even if it would have been enacted, doesn't mean that you would all lose your money right in the second it gets enacted. You would still need a black hat hacker to find out about this bug and exploit it, as they say here on the exploit path. The good thing is, so the
Mr.
Mr. P found out about the bug and is a white hat. So we are fortunate enough to have support for the protocol, not against it.
Correct.
But well, the thing still stands. It was a critical, severe bug. It was found. It's not fixed yet. That's also important to understand. The newest version that came out with Ripple D just deprecated the current fix and the batch amendment. Why? Because it will be reintroduced with batch v1_1, because this way you can merge all the fixes and changes and the actual batch amendment into one big new amendment.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's easier for the validators to vote on it, because they don't have to care about the fix first until the fix is in, and then you have to vote the batch. It's easier.
Correct. Just one last thing as well is you see a lot of posts made also by news outlets and so on. Let's make me very clear here. This was not activated on the mainnet, so there is no risk for you right now at all. You know, from this, but it was definitely a close call, right? It was definitely a close call. That's just the truth of the things. People did in the community their best, right? From what their capabilities are. Like you and me, we have also just limited capabilities of doing so. We cannot blame each other, but there are ways of doing better. And I see a lot of people have very good, ambitious plans to do better for the code, incorporate more AI, have like really good roadmaps and things like this, how to just do everything much, much better. And I think we will see just more. And I like the security enhancement roadmap that was just posted here, as I said, and more to follow, I'm pretty sure. But that will definitely be a thing until we have formal verification, right? That's really the thing.
Yeah.
We need to.
Oh, even smart contracts. I mean, even smart contracts would already help us.
That will help.
Well, formal verification obviously is like the last step that we need to be really
smart
sure.
Smart contracts would be even better, actually. Yeah. That's the thing, because
it's a good first step, right? Before we get the full formal verification.
Before we get like smart contract or something like that. It's actually in that thing with batch. That's actually one of the things that you would want to have as an amendment, right? If you compare it to smart contracts or what you can do with smart contract, other features you could say, let's say token escrow. Yeah, you could do it with a smart contract. Doesn't need to be like necessarily a native, but batch, like atomic, sort of transaction dependency logic. You sort of want to have this like built into the protocol. So in that case, it would have been anyway probably an amendment, even like let's say with contract. It just it was just not great how it happened. I'm sort of chill now more than when it happened, because when it happened everybody was of course like
freaking out.
like what's going on, but everybody handled it so well. Shout out to all the validators who vetoed. Big shout out to the core ledger developers who immediately went to work to get an update going. Shout out to all the people who tested the new Ripple D release, like XRPL D release over the weekend to get us like on Monday, because people were like working over the weekend actually to get us the update on Monday. So yeah, big shout out to them. And of course, for any other community member who was like, amplifying the message, just keeping people, of course, like what's going on and what's ahead. Yeah, that's sort of the situation. Yeah.
I think we handled it pretty well.
Yeah.
Like as always, when things go bad, I think the community sticks together, and especially the validators, the operators behind these DONL validators know very well what should happen if something like this is found. They have experience because most of them are OGs. They know the XRPL very well. It's nothing new to them to find bugs. And they know how to handle them, which they again proved, which is bullish for me. Because this is like the wall that protects us against all the bad things that can happen or could have happened if we would have let it go through.
Yeah, we did like how we handled it, the best that we could do, 100%. And thanks that we have like so many very active people in the community to handle these things. I hope we gain a lot more active people in the community, specifically on the UNL. That would, of course, only make it better, right? It makes it only better. And together with all the other things, I'm very confident that we will do better in the future on these things. With a very good lesson on this, right? A very good lesson. But I think it all prioritizes like a lot of the formal verification specification part, plus AI. Because AI makes actually all of these things better. If you give AI a good formally specified XRP ledger, then it can even better check these things out.
Because context matters, it then knows what to look out for. So this is probably where it will shine even more. But even now, with AI is already finding edge cases that a normal person would have probably not found. So
it's insane, like what AI is doing. By the way, this is of course sophisticated AI. This is not ChatGPT. I think people think someone on their phone, opened ChatGPT and said, "Give me bench error," and then they got like on their ChatGPT on the phone. This is not ChatGPT on your phone.
Cantina AI is security focused only.
Yeah.
Like it's very, it also, if you go to the website and look out for Cantina AI, it also helped Coinbase, for example, already. So
they have done a really tremendous job. And I was like in a little bit chat with them. They said there is something called MTTR, which is like the mean time to respond. So to such incident. And they said, for example, for the XRP Ledger, like we're doing well. But of course, there is like we can do better in a lot of these aspects, and I'm so eager for them just to showing it to us, that they showed this to us, and us like basically following on these recommendations, and to do just better in general with all of the things that they provided. Because at the end of the day, it's like, you cannot know what you don't know. And that's a big problem. If you don't know about these things, then you don't, and you think you know everything, but until you get proven like otherwise. But happy that it went the way that it actually went.
Right.
And everything went good.
So that's pretty bullish to me, at least. I think if we move forward with these kinds of support, I think it will happen less and less. And as we know, with formal verification and with smart contracts, these kinds of severe bugs will happen less and less. Obviously, it could happen all the time. It's not like it will never happen again, but the chances will lessen over time, which is something I'm really looking forward to. Thanks, Zed, for the interview again, for the show.
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure with you and going through the impact and the security roadmap and how we will move forward with Batch. I hope we will see Batch again introduced as Batch version 1_1. And until then, everyone, hope you enjoyed the show. Like and subscribe. And until next time. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.